The rain hammered against the windows like it had a grudge. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of bills under the dim overhead light, the kind of yellowed glow that makes everything look worse than it is. Electric company, final notice. Water bill overdue. Rent creeping up in 5 days. And my latest freelance check still hadn't cleared. I rubbed my temples, the weight of it all pressing down like a physical thing. My name's Mason Hartley. I'm 34 years old, and I live in a rundown duplex on Cedar Street in Colorado Springs. It's one of those forgotten neighborhoods where the houses sag a little, paint peels in long strips, and stray dogs wander the cracked sidewalks like they own the place. I moved here about a year ago after everything collapsed. Back in Denver, I used to run my own architecture firm. We designed modern homes, sleek office spaces, even a few community centers that got some press. I had a team, a downtown office with glass walls, projects lined up for months. Life felt solid, like I was building something real. Then came the lawsuit point. One of our biggest clients accused us of design flaws in a residential complex we'd worked on. It wasn't true. The real problem was their cheap contractors cutting every corner they could find, but the legal battle drained me dry. Court fees, lost contracts, my reputation shredded in the industry. By the end, the firm went bankrupt. I walked away with nothing but debt and a stack of broken dreams. I sold what I could, moved out here to this cheap rental, and started over as a freelance designer. Now I take whatever gigs come my way. Garage additions for neighbors, floor plan tweaks for small businesses. It pays enough to keep the lights on. Barely. The duplex isn't much. 2 units from the 70s with creaky floors, drafty windows, and a heating system that rattles like it's dying. I furnished it with garage sale finds. A lumpy sofa, a mismatched dining table, lamps that flicker when the wind picks up. No photos on the walls. No personal touches. Just a place to sleep, eat, and work. Friends? I don't have many left. The ones from my old life drifted away during the mess, and I haven't bothered making new ones here. Most nights, it's just me, the hum of the fridge, and the distant sound of traffic on the highway. That particular night started like any other. Late September, and the weather had been threatening all week. Gray skies holding their breath. I was nursing a lukewarm cup of instant coffee, flipping through those bills, when the wind started howling. Then the rain hit, hard and sudden, like someone had flipped a switch. Thunder rolled in the distance, getting closer with each boom. My phone buzzed with a weather alert. Severe storm warning. Flash floods possible. High winds. Power outages likely. Great. Just what I needed. I got up to check the windows, making sure they were latched tight. The rain was coming down in sheets now, turning the street into a blurry mess. Lightning flashed, illuminating the empty driveway and the neighbor's flickering porch light. I figured I'd ride it out with a book, anything to distract from the bills and the silence. That's when the doorbell rang. That IT was almost 10 p.m., way too late for visitors. Who the hell would be out in this? I hesitated, my hand hovering over the knob. This wasn't the safest neighborhood. I'd heard stories. Break-ins. Sketchy people knocking late at night. But the bell rang again, insistent over the roar of the storm. That I peered through the peephole. Outside, under the weak glow of my porch light, stood 2 young women huddled together against the rain. They looked soaked to the bone, hair plastered to their faces, clothes dripping, arms wrapped around themselves as they shivered. One was taller with blonde hair matted down, the other shorter with dark curls clinging to her cheeks. They didn't look threatening, just desperate. Still, I paused. What if it was a scam? But then lightning cracked again, and I saw the fear in their eyes as they glanced back at the dark street. Something tugged at me. Maybe pity. Maybe just the loneliness of my own night. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the door and cracked it open, the chain still latched. "Can I help you?" I asked, raising my voice over the wind. The taller one stepped forward, water streaming down her face. "Hi. I'm so sorry to bother you this late. Our car broke down about a mile back, and our phones have no signal because of the storm. We've been knocking on doors, but no one's answering. Could we please use your phone to call for help? Just for a minute." Her voice was shaky, polite, exhausted. The shorter one nodded, teeth chattering. "Please. We're freezing out here." I scanned them quickly. No bags. No signs of trouble. Just two scared girls caught in the worst weather. Part of me wanted to say no, close the door, and go back to my solitude. It was safer that way. But looking at them, drenched and vulnerable, I couldn't. "All right," I said, unlatching the chain. "Come in. But just for the call." They hurried inside, dripping water on the linoleum entryway. I closed the door behind them, the storm's roar muffling to a distant rumble. "I'm Mason," I said, grabbing a couple of old towels from the hall closet. "Here, dry off. The phone's in the kitchen." "Thank you so much," the taller one said, taking a towel. "I'm Audrey Sinclair, and this is my sister, Sophia." Sophia wiped her face, her hands trembling. "We really appreciate it. We didn't know what to do." I nodded, leading them to the kitchen. The house felt different with them there. Smaller, warmer somehow, despite the chills seeping through the walls. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a night that would turn my quiet, struggling life upside down. They stepped further into the kitchen, and I watched as puddles formed at their feet on the worn linoleum. Water dripped from their clothes in steady streams. The overhead light buzzed and dimmed for a moment, probably the storm messing with the power lines. I flicked it a couple of times until it steadied. "Here," I said, handing them the towels. "They're clean, but old. Dry off as best you can." Audrey took one with a grateful nod, wrapping it around her shoulders like a shawl. "Thank you, Mason. Really." Sophia did the same, rubbing her arms vigorously. "You have no idea how grateful we are." Up close, under the yellowish glow of the bulb, I could see they were both probably in their late 20s. Audrey had sharp features and a poised demeanor, even soaked to the bone. Sophia was softer, with wide eyes that darted around the room as if assessing everything. They didn't look like sisters at first glance, but there was a similarity in their posture, a quiet resilience. "The phone's right here," I said, gesturing to the old landline on the wall. The kind with a curly cord that tangled itself no matter what. I picked up the receiver and tried the dial tone. Nothing. Just static crackling like the thunder outside. "Damn," I muttered, hanging up. "The lines must be down from the storm." No signal on my cell either. "You ladies are welcome to try yours again if you want." Audrey pulled out her phone, frowning at the screen. Still nothing. "This storm is brutal." Sophia mirrored her, shaking her head that I turned to the stove, lighting a burner to heat some water. "I'll make you something hot to drink. Tea, okay? Or I have instant hot chocolate if you prefer." "Hot chocolate sounds amazing," Sophia said, her voice still shaky from the cold. She perched on the edge of one of the mismatched chairs, towel draped over her lap. Audrey stood by the window, peering out at the storm, her silhouette framed against the flashing lightning. "It's really coming down out there." While the water heated, I cleared some of my drafting tools and those unpaid bills from the table, sweeping them into a drawer. Didn't need them seeing my mess. The fridge hummed loudly, and the old gas stove ticked as the flame caught. "So what brings you two through Colorado Springs in a storm like this?" I asked, trying to make it casual. Audrey turned from the window. "We're on a road trip back home after visiting some friends in Denver. We both graduated college a few months ago. I did marketing at USC, and Sophia studied art history at Yale. Figured we'd take the scenic route before real life kicks in." "USC and Yale?" I said, genuinely surprised. "Impressive." They carried themselves with an ease that spoke of good educations, but their soaked clothes hid any hints of privilege. Up close, though, I noticed the quality. Audrey's jacket looked like real leather, not the cheap stuff. And Sophia's boots had that polished look even through the mud. Not flashy, but not bargain bin either. I poured the hot water over packets of cocoa, stirring until it dissolved into something resembling comfort in a mug. "Here you go," I said. Handing them each one, the steam rose in lazy curls. And for a moment, the kitchen smelled like something warmer than my usual solitude. "This is perfect," Sophia said, cradling the mug. "Thank you. What about you, Mason?" Audrey asked, wrapping her hands around her cup. "What's your story? This place seems cozy." I chuckled, rubbing the back of my neck. I wasn't used to talking about myself, especially not to strangers. But the storm outside created this bubble, like we were the only three people in the world, and it loosened something in me. Cozy is one way to put it. I used to own an architecture firm in Denver, designed some pretty cool stuff. Modern homes, a few office buildings. Had a good run for a while. Sophia's eyes lit up. "Architecture? That's fascinating. What happened, if you don't mind me asking?" I hesitated, staring into my own mug. It had been months since I'd voiced it out loud. A client dispute turned into a lawsuit. They claimed design flaws, but it was their contractor screwing up. Fought it for over a year, but it bankrupted the firm. Lost everything. The office, my savings, even some friends who didn't want the drama. Moved here to start over with freelance work. It's tough, but I still love drawing plans. Keeps me going. They listened without interrupting, their expressions sympathetic but not pitying. Audrey nodded slowly. "That sounds brutal, but you're still at it. That says a lot about you." We talked more as the night wore on. They shared stories from college. Late-night study sessions, bad dorm food, the thrill of independence. I opened up about my early days in the field, the satisfaction of seeing a sketch turn into a building. The conversation flowed easily, jumping from favorite books. Audrey loved thrillers, Sophia preferred biographies, to travel dreams. They'd both backpacked through Europe. Outside, the wind battered the house, rattling the loose pane in the window. I glanced at the clock. Past 11 now. There was no way they'd make it back to their cars safely. "Look," I said, "in this weather, it's not safe to head out. The roads are probably flooded, and who knows when help could come. If you're okay with it, you can crash here for the night. I've got a pull-out sofa in the living room. It's not fancy, but it's dry." They exchanged a quick look, the kind sisters share without words. Audrey spoke first. "Are you sure? We don't want to impose." "It's no trouble," I replied. "Better than freezing out there." Sophia smiled faintly. "Thank you. We'll take you up on that." I set about preparing the space. The living room was as sparse as the rest of the house. A threadbare rug over scuffed hardwood, books on architecture stacked on a rickety shelf, and the sofa that had seen better decades. I pulled it out into a bed, shaking out a couple of clean sheets and blankets from the linen closet. They weren't much, faded from too many washes, but they were warm. "Bathroom's down the hall if you need it," I said. "There's extra toothbrushes in the drawer, unopened. Help yourselves." As they settled in, I retreated to my room, the weight on my shoulders feeling a little lighter. For the first time in what felt like forever, my house didn't echo with silence. Little did I know, this unexpected night was planting the seeds for something that would upend my world. 2 weeks passed in a blur, the kind of routine that had become my new normal. I'd wake up to the weak Colorado sun filtering through the blinds, brew my cheap coffee, and hunch over my laptop, tweaking designs for clients who paid just enough to keep the lights on. The storm had left its mark on the neighborhood. A few downed trees, some flooded basements down the block, but for me, it faded into memory like everything else that I thought about Audrey and Sophia a couple of times, wondering if they'd made it home okay. But I didn't dwell on it. People come and go. That's life. The card Audrey gave me sat in my wallet, untouched. What would I even call for? Help with my crumbling career? No, that night was just a fluke. A brief interruption in my solitude. Work picked up a little. A local contractor needed plans for a home extension, which kept me busy sketching late into the evenings. The duplex felt as empty as ever, the walls echoing my footsteps, the fridge stocked with basics. Bread, eggs, canned soup. I avoided looking at the bills too closely, paying what I could and shoving the rest aside. One evening, I even drove past the spot where their Mercedes had broken down. The road was dry and unremarkable now. No trace of them. Life moved on. It was a crisp morning, the kind where the air bites just enough to remind you fall is settling in when the doorbell rang again. I was at the drafting table, pencil in hand, outlining a roofline on graph paper. The sound startled me. Deliveries were rare, and I wasn't expecting anyone. Wiping graphite dust from my hands, I walked to the door, peering through the peephole out of habit, and my heart skipped. There on the porch stood Audrey and Sophia, looking polished and dry this time. No trace of the storm-soaked girls from before. Beside them was a man in his early 60s, dressed in a sharp gray suit, tie knotted perfectly, with silver hair and an air of quiet authority. He held a leather briefcase, and his posture screamed executive. I opened the door, confusion knitting my brow. Audrey, Sophia, what? Hi. Is everything okay with the car? Audrey smiled warmly, stepping forward. Hi, Mason. Everything's fine. We wanted to come by and thank you properly. This is our father, Vincent Sinclair. The man extended a hand, his grip firm and confident. Mason, pleasure to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. I shook his hand, still processing. Come in, please. They filed inside, the living room suddenly feeling even smaller with the three of them there. Vincent's suit looked expensive, tailored perfectly, and his watch caught the light. Something Swiss, probably worth more than my rent for a year. I gestured to the sofa. Have a seat. Can I get you coffee or water? No need, Vincent said, settling in with an ease that suggested he was used to commanding rooms. Audrey and Sophia sat beside him, exchanging glances. We're here because my daughters told me about that night. The storm, the breakdown, how you let them in without a second thought. I wanted to thank you personally. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. It was nothing. Anyone would have done the same. Vincent chuckled softly, shaking his head. Not quite. They knocked on 17 doors before yours. 17. No one answered. In a storm like that, people are cautious. I get it. But you opened up. That says something about character. 17. The number hit me like a punch. I'd assumed they'd just wandered a bit, but that many rejections? I glanced at the girls. Audrey nodded. We were starting to panic, Sophia admitted. It was getting scary out there. Vincent leaned forward, his expression turning serious. After they got home safely, they couldn't stop talking about you. Your story, the architecture firm, the lawsuit, how you're piecing things back together. I had my team do a little digging. Nothing invasive, just public records, your old projects. Impressive work, Mason. That community center in Denver? Solid design, forward thinking. I felt a flush creep up my neck. Part embarrassment, part unease. You looked me up? He waved a hand dismissively. Standard procedure when someone does right by my family. I run Sinclair Development Group out of Portland. We're in real estate, commercial, residential, big projects across the West Coast. I've seen a lot of talent come and go, but what struck me wasn't just your portfolio. It was you, helping two strangers in the middle of the night. That's rare. Trustworthy. My mind raced. Sinclair Development. I'd heard the name in industry circles. A major player with skyscrapers and luxury complexes to their credit. Millionaires easily. Billionaire territory, maybe. And here he was in my shabby duplex, praising me like I was some hero. I appreciate that, Mr. Sinclair, but I didn't do it for recognition. They needed help. I had a door. Call me Vincent, he insisted, pulling a folder from his briefcase. And that's exactly why I'm here. My girl saw something in you that night. Kindness without expectation. I see potential. We've got expansion plans, and I think you'd fit right in. Audrey chimed in, her voice soft but earnest. Mason, that night meant more to us than you know. You didn't just give us shelter. You talked to us like people, not problems. Dad's right. You're special. Sophia nodded. We told him everything. How you shared your story made us feel safe. It wasn't just about the roof over our heads. I sat down finally, the weight of their words sinking in. The room felt charged, like the air before another storm. Vincent slid the folder across the table. Inside were printouts of my old designs, articles about the lawsuit, even a recent freelance sketch I'd posted online for a client. He'd done his homework. "I'm not here out of pity," he continued. "This is business, but good business starts with good people. We're launching a major project in Portland. Mixed-use development, residential towers, retail spaces, green areas. It's ambitious, the kind that'll redefine a neighborhood. I need a senior project architect who can handle the vision from concept to completion. Someone with your eye for detail, your history of innovative designs. The salary starts at 6 figures. Full benefits, relocation package if you want it, stock options after the first year." I stared at the documents. Projections, timelines, preliminary sketches. It was surreal, like looking at a parallel version of my life, one where the lawsuit hadn't derailed everything. "Vincent, this is generous, but why me? There are dozens of architects with clean records, big firms behind them." He leaned back. "Because records don't tell the whole story. I've hired plenty of hotshots with Ivy League degrees and spotless resumes. Half of them flake under pressure or chase the next big paycheck. You've been through the fire. You lost it all and kept going. That's resilience. And what you did for my girls. That's integrity. In my line of work, I need people I can trust, not just with blueprints, but with the big picture." I ran a hand through my hair, the weight of the offer pressing down. For months, I'd scraped by on freelance scraps, dodging calls from creditors, wondering if I'd ever design something meaningful again. This wasn't just a job. It was a reset button. Stability, purpose, a chance to build instead of just survive. But doubt crept in. "I appreciate it, truly, but I don't want this because of one night. I need to earn it." Vincent smiled, a knowing glint in his eye. "You already have. This isn't charity. It's smart business. Take the weekend to think. Call me Monday. No pressure." They stood then, shaking hands. The girls hugged me briefly. Audrey's quick and professional, Sophia's warmer, like a friend. "Don't overthink it," Audrey whispered. "You deserve this." As the door closed behind them, the house fell silent again, but it felt different. Charged with possibility that I spent the weekend pacing the duplex like a caged animal. The folder Vincent left sat on my coffee table, staring at me like a dare. I'd flip through the pages, study the project specs, trace my fingers over the preliminary sketches, then set it down and walk away, only to come back an hour later and do it all over again. Saturday night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the ceiling. The cracks spiderwebbed across the plaster like a map of everything that had gone wrong. Was this pity wrapped in opportunity? Was I being foolish to even consider it? What if I failed again? What if the weight of their expectations crushed me? But then I thought about the 17 doors. 17 times Audrey and Sophia had knocked, desperate and afraid, and 17 times they'd been turned away. I hadn't known who they were. Hadn't known their last name carried weight in boardrooms and investment portfolios. I'd just seen two people who needed help, and Vincent was right. I had been through the fire, the lawsuit, the bankruptcy, the slow rebuild from nothing. I was still standing, still designing, still hoping, even when hope felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. By Sunday evening, I'd made my decision. Monday morning, I dialed Vincent's number, my hands steadier than I expected. "I'm in," I said simply. There was a pause. Then his voice came through, warm and unsurprised. "Excellent. We'll fly you out next week for orientation. Welcome to the team, Mason." The transition happened faster than I could process. They handled everything. Movers packed up my meager belongings, shipping my drafting table and tools to Portland. They covered the deposit on a modest apartment in the Pearl District, a space with open layouts, a modern kitchen, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. It was a world away from the duplex. Clean, bright, full of possibility. My first day at Sinclair Development was a whirlwind. Meetings with department heads, introductions to the design team, a corner office with natural light pouring in. Vincent treated me like a peer from the start, not a charity case. The team was sharp, collaborative, hungry to create something meaningful. I dove into the project headfirst, sketching concepts that blended urban functionality with green spaces, drawing on lessons from my past failures to make the designs bulletproof. Late nights became normal again, but this time they were fueled by passion, not desperation. The rhythm of creation returned, that electric feeling when a sketch clicks into place and you can see the building rising in your mind. Weeks turned to months. The salary hit my account like clockwork, erasing debts one by one. The electric company, the water bill, the overdue rent from Cedar Street. All ghosts now, paid off and forgotten. I bought new clothes that actually fit. Started eating meals that didn't come from discount bins. For the first time in years, I slept without the knot of worry in my gut. One crisp autumn afternoon, I stood in my office overlooking downtown Portland. The city bustled below, a living canvas of glass and steel and human ambition. On my desk sat a framed photo from the project's groundbreaking ceremony. Vincent, Audrey, Sophia, and me, shovels in hand, dirt flying. We were all smiling. I pulled Audrey's card from my wallet, the edges worn now from being carried around. It was still there, a reminder of that storm-soaked night that changed everything. If I hadn't opened that door, if I'd ignored the bell like those other 17 houses, if I'd chosen safety over compassion, everything would be different. The struggling freelancer, the empty nights, the fading dreams, they'd still define me. But one small choice, one act of kindness in the storm, had ripple effects I couldn't have foreseen. Vincent wasn't wrong. Integrity pays off, sometimes in ways you'd least expect. Not because good deeds always lead to rewards, but because living with compassion opens doors you didn't even know existed. It connects you to people who see past resumes and portfolios to the person underneath. As the sun set over Portland, casting golden hues across my blueprints, I felt a quiet gratitude settle in my chest. Life had handed me a second chance, wrapped in the unlikeliest package. 2 strangers in the rain. A father who valued character over credentials. A city that felt like home in ways Denver never had. I wasn't naive. I knew success wasn't permanent, that challenges would come, that I'd have to prove myself every single day. But for now, standing in that office with the skyline stretching before me, I allowed myself to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The phone on my desk buzzed. A text from Sophia. Dinner this weekend? Audrey and I want to hear how the design presentation went. I smiled, typing back a quick yes. They'd become friends. Real ones, not just the people who'd changed my life. We grabbed coffee between meetings, shared stories over meals, celebrated small victories. They never let me forget where I'd come from, but they also never let me doubt where I was going. As I packed up for the evening, tucking sketches into my portfolio, I thought about all the people out there still knocking on doors, still caught in storms, looking for shelter, still struggling to rebuild after everything fell apart. Maybe my story would reach someone who needed to hear it. Maybe it would remind them that kindness matters, that resilience counts, that one open door can change everything. Or maybe it would just be a story, told late at night, about a man who lost it all and found his way back through the most unexpected path. Either way, I was grateful. As I locked the office door and headed into the cool Portland evening, the city lights flickering to life around me, I whispered a quiet thank you to the storm that brought them to my door. Sometimes the worst nights lead to the brightest mornings, and sometimes helping someone else is exactly how you save yourself. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps us bring more real stories to life. If this story touched your heart, pass it on. You never know who might need to hear it. Until next time, keep your doors open and your hearts kind. Life has a way of rewarding both.